Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's episode of the Conscious Grief series. Today, I am delighted to be here with Sydney Richdale. Welcome, Sydney.
Hi,
Sydney,
Tara.
an intimacy coach and a Reiki practitioner. So today, we're going to really be focusing on relationship grief and other things, because I think often it gets a little bit overlooked about how intense the grief can be from relationships. You know, we so commonly associate it with the word grief with the death of somebody, but it's so much more than that. So, Sydney, I was thinking to begin with, perhaps you could tell us how you ended up in this space of being an intimacy coach, and what does an intimacy coach mean for people who may not know that?
Yeah. Oh gosh, big question. First of all, hello everybody. Hope you're enjoying this series so far. And so I just had this seed planted. I think spirit planted it in me when I was a teenager that I really wanted to support people around their sex life and feeling, intimate and connected and a sense of belonging, because I've really struggled with those feelings throughout my life. So that just felt really important to me. And I went to school to become a counselor, and I ended up in the social work field, and which I enjoyed, but ultimately I was like, okay, I'm in the similar realm of helping people, but I want to get more specific on the path that I feel, most called to support people with. So I started a coaching business, and specifically around intimacy and helping people in their sex life. And intimacy, is such a broad topic, and it really just comes down to I ask people okay, well, what type of intimacy are you looking for in your life? I make it very client centered, because my views of intimacy may differ from someone else's. So it really comes down to helping people get clear on what that is to them and what that looks like in their life, and then we can really make a plan and to move forward to create those things in their life and things that they want to feel in their relationships and in their relationship with self. So that's kind of the basis of my work.
I love that. So you've got this background in social work, but for you, the relationship was the thing that you wanted to specialize in. And I guess even in my own experience, I would say relationship area is the most difficult area of my life. And I've had to go through quite a lot of breakups, and currently going through a divorce. And it's been really, really tough, just the process of letting go and realizing that that's something that I'm not particularly very good at, but I think that's pretty common for most people, right? And do you have anything to say personally about grieving relationships?
Yes, definitely. So I was in a long-term relationship for 6 years with this man who I, was like, oh, he's the love of my life. This is my person. And we ended up splitting up for various reasons, probably 3.5 to 4 years ago. And yeah, it's been a challenging road. 3.5, 4 years it sounds like a long time. And sometimes there's pressure that we put on ourselves to have moved through it, or it, doesn't affect me as much anymore. But yeah, grief, it's not a linear process. It's you're pretty good sometimes, then boom, down again. And then you're up and good for a while. Sometimes it's portrayed as we're just keep getting better and better and better, but it's not like that. I feel like grief comes up and it has many different faces that show up in our lives. And yeah, it's a journey and a process, and it differs for everybody, especially based on how they are as a person and their experience. And then, the outward experience of the relationship, because we're talking specifically about relationship grief right now. So Yeah, I definitely have had my fair share of grief around love and relationships and breakups as well.
Yeah. And I love what you shared about it not being just a one way, upward trajectory of time heals all. And it can be years that we're still feeling the sadness. And I think what's difficult about the grief in a relationship is that that person is still here.
Yeah.
So there's always this sort of like, maybe it could work out. Maybe we could figure this out at some point in the future. And that we're always, grasping at the future possibility. I guess when somebody's dealing with a death, it's like you're always looking back. And also looking forward in terms of worrying about how you're going to survive in this new realm of your new life. So do you have any sort of thoughts about how we try to stop like looking into the future and thinking maybe this could work?
Yeah, I have some thoughts about that. And I have been the person who has gone back and tried again with people, like a few different past relationships, and it hasn't worked out. But I'm just saying, like, sometimes it's not necessarily a bad thing that we do that, because maybe we need to re-explore, and then also maybe that act itself gives us the clarity we need to know that it's not right for us or the other person. Like, it's not always, it's what benefits both of you. So sometimes, like, it's okay to go back, because we feel a lot of like judgment when we do, like, and sometimes like we're afraid what other people think, and we're just afraid of judgment because maybe this person did really hurt us, but there's room for growth. I always think there's room for people to acknowledge what maybe the pain they've caused, and how they can what they can commit to moving forward to make it a better relationship for both people. So it can never just be about one, it needs to be about both. So sometimes going back is okay. And sometimes we also, like you said, Tara, we get caught in the trap of like someone's potential and what things could be. And often like we wait, sometimes we're stuck in relationships where we're waiting for a long time, and we're just like hoping and wishing, but we're not necessarily seeing the change we need to see for ourselves. And it's hard to get out of that. But something that it's hard to do when you're, like clouded by emotions or love for someone or even pain, but really looking at like, okay, what values do I need? Like, is there a value clash in the relationship? Because that's a big reason why my long-term relationship ended. We really clashed on like some big value like things that just didn't work. It just wasn't going to work. And I still have so much love for this person. He still like means the world to me, but it just felt like something we couldn't really come to a compromised place on, or find that middle ground. We couldn't do it. So if there's big, like if it's like kind of like behaviors that could change, and actions speak louder than words. Someone can say they'll change to you. They'll say that to your face every day for a year, but if they've done nothing about it, then I don't really see how that's helpful for the relationship. But looking at like, is this person in line with my values and what I need in my life and in my relationships? And if not, we need to believe them, and we need to not make that person wrong. It's just not right for us. So I hope that's helpful.
It's making me think about there's a quote, isn't there? When people show you who they are, believe them.
Yeah.
And I think that's so true, because as you said, actions do speak louder than words. And we have to keep on reminding ourselves about the reasons that we were unhappy in the relationship. And I think the problem that happens because often you can find yourself in a relationship which is like always about to sort of snap, and you have those moments and you argue and pack your bags and leave, and then you resolve it and all the right words get said, and the behavior doesn't change, and you find yourself in that friction moment again. And it's very stressful being in a relationship like that, but that sort of becomes our normal. And then once it's not there anymore, we obviously start to like miss being in the relationship, and then the grief comes, and it's like agonizing and so painful. And then you start to think, well, I'm feeling so much pain, I'm feeling so much agony, then I must love that person so much, and therefore I must be able to resolve this, because otherwise I wouldn't be feeling this traumatized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something. There's like this quote that I like hate. I hate it when people say it. I hate that it's a quote, but it's like, love is not enough. And unfortunately, it's so true, even though I hate it. Like, I hate that it's not, you know? But yeah, just because you love someone or you love each other doesn't mean it's right for both of you. And it sucks if you're both in a place where you're just hurting and miserable, or constantly hurting the other person just by being who you are. Like, you're not doing it intentionally, but, you know, like, and it's, the harder thing to do is leave, but the kinder thing to do is leave. Mm-hmm. And like, so you're both not in that like space of turmoil, you know, like it's hard. It's so hard, you guys. I'm not saying it's easy. Like for me, like the hardest thing to do is let go of those really tender moments and memories where you did feel all that love. Mm-hmm. You did feel all that connection. Like, it's still hard. It's hard to look back on. I still like think about what could be with this person, because there's so much love there. And I also get to recognize that us being together is not right for both of us. It'll just cause both of us more pain. And I don't want to cause him more pain or myself. So, and it doesn't mean you can't have a good relationship. Just, you know, friendship or something. Like, it's kind of tricky to get to that point sometimes it takes a long time, but it is possible.
Yeah, and I did like what you said earlier, that it's okay to go back, because it's really difficult making a decision to end a relationship, and that takes up a lot of energy, and then you speak to everybody about why you've made that decision. And then you think, I'm going to go back, but like you said, everyone's going to judge me. And I do think that that's part of the breakup, isn't it? Sometimes we have to break up over and over and over again. And it's not, breakups are just not clean, like grief, you know, it's very rare that they are. And so I think saying to people, you know, don't worry about it, like you said, and just being really kind of compassionate with yourself, that this is just your process. This is just the way it's going to be.
Yeah. And something I also tell people, which is like hard to do and it's uncomfortable, it's not pleasant and it is healing, it's to like really let yourself feel the pain, like cry, like, I don't know, punch pillows, like whatever you need to do to just let yourself feel it. Because if you don't, it's just gonna like sit in your body and just cause you like potentially, like it might turn into like illness or, you know, chronic pain or something. Like your body, I have this book called Feelings Buried Alive, Never Die. And it's all about how the cells in your body like really hold on to your emotions. So you get to find a way to like release those. And often we feel really self-conscious about crying and showing emotions and, you know, being vulnerable. But it's part of the healing process, and it doesn't mean you're weak. Like, I know a lot of people are like, see that, you know, think it's weak to like break down. just give yourself permission to break down and cry when you need to. It sucks. It feels terrible in the moment or moments. Like, I don't know how many meltdowns I had throughout the last few years around this, loss of this love of my life. But just, I needed to let myself do it. Need to let myself have people witness that, like just be in space. And that's something for people who don't know how, like what to do necessarily when someone else is grieving. Honestly, just holding space for them and their feelings is most often like what people really want and need, even if they don't know that and can't say it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great point. That's why it's so good to be with a skilled coach, like somebody like yourself, because the problem with our friends is that they will, they'll just try and fix it and try and tell us how we're much better off without that person, or just, they hate seeing us in that sort of pain, most people. So finding either a friend that can really hold the space for you, or being in a space with a professional coach, I think that's so key. And like, we do feel a lot of shame still around crying and being upset, and we think we've got to sort of toughen up and soldier on, and we get a lot of messages around us from society about how we can move on, whether it's like get a new haircut or get on a dating website and meet somebody else. And I think it's like really trying to just change that thinking around being in grief. This is a relationship. This is somebody that you've loved, that you've had, like you say, all these memories with. It's natural to be sad and allow yourself to be sad. What was the book that you recommended? Could you say that again?
The one I just mentioned.
Yeah, the one you just mentioned.
It's called Feelings Buried Alive Never Die.
Okay, that sounds amazing.
Yeah. And I also, for anyone interested, I bought this book when I was going through my breakup, and I just thought it was a really like nice support. It just like is really like short, and like it just feels so gentle and just like nice reminders, I don't know, to read through. It talks about grief, like the different kinds, and then little things you can do in a really like gentle, seemingly loving way. And I just thought it really helped me. So I don't know if that would help someone else too.
I'm sure it will. I appreciate you sharing that. And we can write those book titles underneath this video as well. Because I do think when we're in acute grief from a relationship, we can just feel so alone. And, having a little book like that, or trying to find a support group even for breakups. Do you have any other ideas for things you could do while you're grieving a relationship?
Yes. One of them is just knowing that grief shows its face in different ways. So for me, often like my natural reaction is to like feel angry, but often underneath that, it's sadness and hurt. So just recognizing how grief shows up in your life, whether that, because it's not always just sadness and depression. It can be anxiety, it can be anger, it can be, like it can be sadness, but just first of all, being able to recognize it, because sometimes we might be grieving something, but not aware of it. Sometimes it's not like the breakup or you losing someone. Like sometimes it's often subtle, like maybe we're grieving like something within ourselves, like who we used to be, like, or something about us that we used to really enjoy about ourselves, but we feel different, and like maybe just haven't connected to that, or something along those lines. So being able to recognize maybe when grief is showing up in your life, and then just connecting to community, like you said, like really like you deserve support. And sometimes we talk ourselves into this story of like, oh, I don't need anything. I don't need anyone. Like, I'm fine. But like, are you, like, you don't need to like punish yourself and, isolate yourself. Like, surround yourself with people who love you, care about you. Maybe you need professional help, and that's okay. There's no shame in that. That's actually really a really like self-loving thing you can do for yourself, is give yourself that gift of seeking support. And just, yeah, maybe it's finding a book, maybe it's journaling, like really connecting back to things that make you bring you joy, and it's often really little things. And one more thing about that, self-care, self-love is all well and good. And I always, support people to, create those habits in their life just to love themselves in that way. And acknowledging that sometimes self-care only goes so far. So like I just mentioned earlier, like sometimes you need community. Sometimes you need connection. Sometimes you need a hug from somebody. So you can do so much work on your own, and also you get to be supported by community, by others, like, because that, we're not meant to exist and suffer alone. We're evolved from tribes where we all supported each other. So don't forget that.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point, because as you say, we do live increasingly more isolated. Like, yes, we are grateful for the internet and all that has brought us together. But after 2 years of being in a pandemic, it's like there's been so much grief in the last 2 years, whether that's all kinds of grief. And a lot of people will be trying to do it all alone. And the impacts of that on our mental health and our physical health, as you said from the book that you shared, if we don't have a way of expressing ourselves, and that you may not be somebody that wants to express through talking. It could be other things like running and writing and dancing and creativity. We need to get these things flowing out of us. I mean, you're a Reiki practitioner as well. So could you talk a little bit about how Reiki could support people in grief?
Yes, definitely. So like I said, your body's holding on to lots of things. It's, your cells have memories. It's not just holding on to something that happened a month ago. It's holding on, like your nervous system is holding on to things since you were born, really. So with Reiki, like people often ask me like, oh, like, what do you do with Reiki? And I'm like, well, I don't actually do anything. I'm just the channel between, the universe and the person or animal. I'm just like the conduit to bring the energy through me and offer it to you. So it does what it needs. Mm-hmm. And often, I'll be able to feel and where people are holding a lot of energy or pain in their body. So I'll just focus on those areas, and Reiki really helps like kind of just break up those energetic blocks, like those like tight feelings in your stomach or like your throat, or just if you have a headache, like it really helps to like alleviate pain and bring like peace and relaxation, which it often feels like, very therapeutic when you're going through grief, because like you're in physical pain too. You're not just in emotional pain. So really, just like, it's like this soothing gift for the body. And sometimes it'll actually bring up what's perceived as like more pain. It's called a healing release, where it's like, maybe you've been holding on for so long that like the Reiki is actually bringing it out of you, and it actually kind of feels like uncomfortable, or like it's a little bit painful, or just like discomfort in some way. That's actually a good thing. I always warn people before I give them a treatment, because I'm like, this might happen. And don't see it as a bad thing. It's just your body needs to release that. So it can really help in that sense.
Well, I think that's a really great reminder that physical pain and emotional and mental pain, it can feel scary. And there is this want to run away from pain and change direction away from it because it doesn't feel good and we don't like not feeling good. But actually, that's where sometimes we need to sit and we need to be there, and embrace it on some level, because perhaps like even in the Reiki, that's where you're, like you say, you're releasing things physically, blocks. And so you need a little bit of pain to try to fight through the block, right? A little bit, like the breakup, we have to feel all the pain to sort of get on the other side of it.
And something else I just wanted to add to that, Tara, is your body is like, if something's uncomfortable and like feeling painful or something, your body's like telling you something.
Right.
So if you're like going through, I don't know, like stomach issues or, like a tight throat, like it's telling you that it's needing something. Like your body's very intuitive. It's holding on to something. So getting really present and just like tuning in to like, okay, what's going on in my body right now? Like you can identify like maybe certain like tightness or soreness. Like this is actually a gift. It's giving you like hey, that something's going on and it needs something, and only you'll know what that is when you start paying attention. And like, it's very intuitive. If you just listen and tune in, it'll tell you what it needs and wants.
Yeah, thank you for that reminder that pain can be information. Yeah, pain is information, let's say. Yeah. I like to ask everybody who I interview for your own interpretation of what you think conscious grief means.
I think conscious grief comes down to sort of connected to what I said earlier about knowing how it shows up in your own life, like, and kind of getting intimate with grief in general and your relationship to it. Because for me, I've noticed over the years, like it typically comes out as anger, but what's really underneath that? Like, what am I needing? Like that anger is like, that's like the, hey, no, it can come up emotionally or physically. So I think conscious grief is just really getting connected to what that looks like in your own life. And also I think part of it is like kind of like washing away like the myths and like unhelpful stories we've created as a society around grief, like, the move on or just let it go like mentality. I don't think that's conscious grief. I think it's normalizing it and becoming more accepting of it and loving, because we'll never run away from grief. Like it's going to show up in our lives constantly in different ways and in different extremes. So just starting to normalize that experience, that it's not something to get rid of. It's something to learn to grow and adapt to.
Thank you. I love that. Sydney, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the listeners at all? Just, I like to give people the opportunity if there's something that they thought, oh, that came forward, or to include.
Yeah, just for anyone who may be in a lot of pain right now, just I'm holding space for you and just like honoring you in that, because I know we can feel very self-conscious about our pain and not wanting to like, it gets to a certain timeline in our heads where we feel like we can't share anymore because we're self-conscious that other people have moved on. And but we're still hurting. Like, just like love yourself through that, and you still deserve love and support. And I know it feels scary to maybe like still want to talk about things, but I just hope you give yourself the gift of, maybe if you need to seek a professional or see someone more often, like if friends or family don't feel like you're quite getting what you need, like you're still, how do you say that? I still want you to feel like you deserve that loving care for yourself, and don't impose timelines on yourself, because that only hurts us more.
Great advice, Sydney. Thank you so much for that. And just before we finish, I was wondering, are you doing a free gift of any kind?
Yes. So I've created some like intimacy question sheets. There's one you can, there's one specifically for like individuals, and there's one for couples. So they're just some questions to like go through, and they'll help you really get connected to what we talked about earlier, like the things that bring you joy, the things that feel good, little ways you can like take care of yourself and identify like what it is you need right now as you're going through this, or when you do go through this where it feels more like intense in your life. So, and if for anyone interested, I just thought of this now, I would really love to offer you a complimentary 20-minute Reiki session with me between now and, I don't know, the end of a month after the summit. I'll send you a date that works. But yeah, anyone interested in doing a little clearing, energy clearing, like I'd be happy to support you in that. I can do it long distance. I don't have to see you in person. So that's the beauty of Reiki. It can touch anyone, anywhere in the world.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for that, Sydney. We'll make sure we have the links below this interview. And yeah, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your wisdom. And I too just want to say that to anybody who's watching this and grieving a relationship. It's hard and it's complicated, and I'm sending lots of love to you as well. Yeah.
Yes, and thank you, Tara, for putting on this series. It's so needed. We need to make talking about grief a lot more normal. So thank you. I appreciate you putting this on and for having me. It's been fun to be here.
Wonderful to get to know you. Yeah. So thank you everyone for listening. Bye.